Good evening. Welcome to another Open Office Hours. My name's John. I'm excited to be with you. Today is December the 6th. I can't believe it. Only a couple more weeks and it's the end of the year and on to what everybody I know is hoping is going to be a totally different 2021. Um, this week, we're going to talk about a bunch of different things, right? Some of the headlines that are hitting the news today, where some of the hot opportunities are, and of course, to take any questions you may have. So if you have any questions, hit me up in the chat if you want to, or better yet, join me live here on Zoom. And we can chit chat in person. Those are usually the best times. We've had a couple over the last few weeks, and I always cherish those moments. To find the details to join me, just in the description below, you'll see the Zoom meeting ID and the password. It'll put you into the holding room. Just give me a couple minutes just to kind of see you and then invite you on. And if you are watching the stream, you'll realize that there's a bit of a delay there, but I'll see you and I'll intro you and then we'll come and chit chat, right? So let's get to this week's headlines before we talk about some of the meteor issues. And I guess one of the bigger headlines here in Singapore, where I am based, is on Friday, the government announced the winners of the digital banking licenses that they were putting out to tender. And they end up awarding four licenses to four different groups. All right. So big news. We've been waiting for this for some time. Some people call these digital banks challenger banks. You might have heard that term in other countries. And the groups, the winners, one, a partnership between Grab, the Uber of Southeast Asia, and Singtel, one of the big incumbent telecom providers. So they partnered up, Grab Singtel, and they won one of the big licenses. And the other big one from the C Group, SEA, they're the parent company for, they do a lot of digital games, as well as an e-commerce site called Shopee that they're the parent for too. So these two guys, C Group and Grab Singtel, are the ones that won the wholesale digital banking license. I think that's what it is. Basically the full digital banking license, which means they can offer products to average customers, you and I, as well as to businesses. The second classification of digital licenses, I think these ones are the wholesale ones. These ones can't sell products to individual customers, but only to corporates. So small businesses, most likely small, medium businesses that can't get access to banking services or products through big banks. And the two groups who won this, one was the Ant Group. So you might have heard of them, Ant Financial, who recently had an IPO get kiboshed by the Chinese government. This is the financial arm of Alibaba that's quite famous. And then the last one is a consortium of a bunch of different players that I'm not too familiar with. Greenland Financial, Linklogs Hong Kong, and Beijing Cooperative Equity Investment Fund came together and I guess had a proposal that was a winner, right? So some notable losers of here, one was the tech company Razer, that's quite famous for their gaming technology, gaming hardware, and all the good stuff that goes with it here. And they'd been vying for this for some time. Unfortunately, they did not get that. And a bunch of other ones. ByteDance, the parent company for TikTok, I think was trying to get in there as well. And there were, I think, 14 total companies that were shortlisted after the initial proposals that qualified. So I guess 10 others didn't make the cut. Okay. So why is that important? Well, if we talk about what's hot and where the opportunities are, well, obviously this is going to be one, right? As all the big incumbent banks, right, local banks like DBS, OCBC, UOB, as well as foreign banks like the Citibanks, the HSBCs of the world, Standard Chartered, as they all try to, get a head start by creating their digital banks, right? These guys, the ones who won the license, aren't traditional banks, and they're starting from scratch. I mean, they've been planning for it and obviously coming up with strategies, but now they've got the official green light. They're going to need a lot more people to start building some stuff and getting things out there and then testing and then launching, right? So if you're at all interested in banks, finance, money, and you understand end customers, technology, marketing comms, they're going to need the whole gamut, right? Then obviously this is some interesting places to be. And Singapore is only one of many countries that are going through these kind of processes. Hong Kong went through a similar process and announced their winners, I think about 6 months or maybe even earlier, sometime in early 2020. And in other countries, they've already given the okay for that kind of stuff. So obviously, fintech as a classification of opportunities is definitely a hot place to be, right? But the challenge is, what does fintech really mean? And I think fintech can be that term can be a little intimidating for people that might not be technology majors and have a deep background in STEM, right? So I think, when I was explaining actually to someone I was talking to this morning, I mean, fintech can have, two opposite kind of extreme views. Some people will tell you fintech's been around since the beginning of time. I mean, fintech's just the short form for financial technologies, just a, you know, quick, sexier term for this kind of stuff. And again, technologies for financial institutions have been around since, again, beginning of time, right? Since the mainframe days of COBOL and all that kind of good stuff. And then obviously new age stuff. And now we're going to mobile and then finally full on digital type of stuff. So actually this area of opportunities have been around again a long time. Right. So from that perspective, some people will tell you, hey, you know what? Yeah, this isn't that new. It isn't that hot. But on the other flip side, some people will tell you, no. Fintech's talking about just the new stuff in the last, 5 to 6 years, right? Starting with digital payments that have become much more mainstream. So although, yes, commerce and banking hasn't necessarily changed significantly in the last 50 to 100 years, the adoption of digital technologies, right, especially with COVID today, everybody picking up QR codes and doing I don't know, transfers through Messenger, or even in China through WeChat, right? That's kind of seen a whole explosion, which has really been the start and the tipping point of all this disruption to incumbent players like the banks themselves and other payment infrastructure like the, I don't know, Visas and the MasterCards of the world that have had a bit of a duopoly, and that's got to be a little careful of that term, so they've gotten in trouble over the years for potentially colluding a little bit and having a bit of a closed ecosystem, not letting out other players. Well, now technology and all these kind of new things, social commerce, has found a way to kind of start to edge these guys out. So from that perspective, it can be quite interesting. A lot of new stuff. And obviously there are things like digital assets, digital currencies, the Bitcoins, the blockchains, and all that kind of stuff that is kind of the newer arm of fintech. But regardless which way you see it, whether it's the old stuff that's been around a long time and just trying to digitize the processes that have been there for years, or you're interested in the newer age stuff, I think, again, opportunities galore here, galore, right? And the investment in talent continues to be high. Although there's obviously at the same time a huge investment in technology, starting with things like AI, machine learning, robotic process automation, because every second, yeah, is money for financial institutions. So if you can make things quicker and faster and more accurate, then obviously that improves. But there's so many different areas in a bank, from how to serve customers in the front retail, how to earn people's trust, all the way to doing the very hardcore risk models. How do you detect fraud, security, cybersecurity, all that kind of stuff. So again, depending on your interests, I would suggest this is an area, regardless of your skill set that you have, that you might want to consider. Because I think regardless of what you're doing today, even if it's not financial services related, there could be an area, or at least several areas, that could fit the transferable skills that you have, right? And if you're looking to get even more informed and maybe even a little inspired by what's going on today and what's going to be happening in the future, well, this coming week, starting tomorrow, is the beginning of the Singapore FinTech Festival, the largest FinTech conference in the world. And this year, obviously, since they're not meeting in person here in Singapore, it's all fully digital, online, right? So price points to be a participant are actually quite affordable. I think it's less than $100 to sign up for like a digital pass to watch as many talks as you can. So again, if this is something you're just getting started, you want to learn more, I think that is a worthwhile investment, right? And this year, because I think they're able to, get speakers from around the world and the speakers don't have to necessarily travel here to Singapore, they've got a lineup that is pretty damn impressive. And let me just read you the headliners. I'm not even talking, they've got like thousands of speakers, literally thousands of speakers, so many concurrent sessions over the course of this week. But let me just show you the headline speakers of who's coming, right? So first of all, Bill Gates, he's on the ticket, right? Yeah. And his, I guess, successor, Satya Nadella, the current CEO of Microsoft, will be there. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google and parent group Alphabet, is on the agenda as well as the CEOs of all these financial institutions, traditional banks like HSBC, Barclays, and Standard Chartered, as well as the incoming new CEO of Citibank, Jane Fraser. Dan Schulman, the founder and chairman of PayPal, will be there, as well as the CEOs of MasterCard, Visa, Accenture will be there. Eduardo Saverin, the co-founder of Facebook, and he has his own private equity, VC, B Capital is what it's called here. He'll be along. And, guys like the chairman and CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, will be there. And new age, hot stuff like Vitalik, last name, Buterin, I think, the founder of Ethereum, one of the more popular cryptocurrencies that are around there, right? So these are just the headline guys. And there are tons that I left out. I think the chairman and founder of Infosys and a whole bunch of other guys there, Xiaomi and others. So encourage you to take a look at this, right? Singapore FinTech Festival, if you want to Google it. I think it's fintechfestival.com.sg, I believe. But Google that and you'll see the whole lineup and check it out, right? It starts tomorrow morning, right? Singapore time. Okay, so that's a little bit about the hot stuff today. And I think, this is the field that will continue to grow. And, the interesting thing about financial services, it's not an industry that you look for stability, right? I think sometimes it can get, a misconception here, especially in countries like Singapore, like Hong Kong, where financial services is a huge part of GDP and everybody's livelihood in the country, and it kind of dominates there. So people tend to think that, it's a good, safe place to go to. But no, financial services are not safe, right? They grow really fast and really quickly. And right now, right, it's in one of those points where they're about to take off and continue to keep going, especially, again, with all this fintech kind of stuff. But when things don't go well, financial services are also one of the fastest to drop the hammer, right? Boom, ruthless, let's cut costs. So you kind of see a bit of a yo-yo effect over time, not necessarily every 3 months where they're hiring and then firing and hiring and firing, but certainly a year, 2 years, right? It's not necessarily as smooth and cyclical. Yeah. So encourage you to look, but just understand where some of the risks may be. Okay. And right now, I think it's a good time because I think it's about to go gangbusters again. What do I want to talk about next? All right, I see there's a bunch of you on. Again, if you're joining me today and you're there, hit me up in the chat, say hello, let me know you're there. Or if you want to chat with me in person, just go down into the description. You can find the Zoom meeting link and the password. Join me there. Let me know what you think about what I just mentioned, about fintech, about financial services, right? Whether you're someone who's currently in that industry or you're thinking about potentially pivoting into that industry, would love to hear your thoughts. Hit me up on the chat, or again, join me live, and we can chat about more. Chat about that more. So I guess the second big thing I'm going to kind of talk about then, the next big headline, I guess also another opportunity of where jobs are today. Healthcare is obviously another big one, right? And the headline that you might have seen just Friday is that the UK has issued an emergency approval to Pfizer, and there's another group that's working with Pfizer on a COVID-19 vaccine. And there are plans that they're going to start rolling out this vaccine now that it's gotten the green light as of this week, right? And I was like, what? Like, I appreciate that you got the fast track, but I'm like, okay, but like, isn't there some time? You got to set some stuff, blah, blah, blah. But it looks like they're going to start rolling it out this week. So that's a bit crazy if you think about that, right? Now, again, for some of you, you might be like, it's about time, right? I mean, what's taking you so long? But unfortunately, I'm personally a little more risk adverse, knowing that the process, generally speaking, to get vaccines to the market usually takes years and years before it sees the light. This one, yeah, makes me a little nervous that we've cut potentially some corners and fast tracking things and so many different versions out. And now we're going to see the exact results in the public space as of this week. So, what does that mean for careers? And what does that mean potentially for the workplace of the future? Well, let's start with job opportunities. Like, obviously, now that everyone's starting to go from R&D and bringing out live, there's a lot more opportunities for the general public. I mean, the R&D phase, it's purely scientists, right? You have to be, life sciences, super educated and trained to do all that part, right? The experimentations and the trials and the analysis and the research papers, et cetera, et cetera. But now that things are getting green lit, now they're kind of coming to the forefront, or what we would call commercialization, right? This is where everybody else can potentially be coming on board. And again, if you're thinking about what types of things you could do, well, I would start with what kind of skills do you have? What kind of experience do you have now? And how could that similar, transferable, taking that set and apply it to healthcare, right? Whether it's down to the ground, customer service, being able to, do administration, designing processes, and, the whole empathy of that, down to, again, logistics, right? QA, the whole online tracking. How do we integrate this to other digital health systems that are around? There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to happen. And the thing with these vaccines, and again, I haven't read a lot about it because I'm kind of like, wait, let others, figure it out and test that. I don't feel like I'm going to be in a fast, an early adopter, right? I'll probably be not a fast follower, but maybe a medium, maybe even laggard on the following. But I mean, there's so much here that's possible, right? And these vaccines aren't going to be one-offs. It looks like from some of the ones I've read is that it's kind of like, maybe 3 months, 6 months, and then the antibodies wear off, and then you might have to get booster shots, right? Now, again, some scientists have said once the antibodies are in there, then your body remembers how to produce them. So if they see the virus, they can produce the antibodies much quicker and by themselves, right? But I think, again, vaccinations are going to take on a whole new life. And everybody's focused just on COVID today. But once COVID somewhat gets under control, there's probably tons of others that are right behind. Like, are we going to spend some more time perfecting the flu vaccine? I mean, that's a pretty big killer as well. And some people say it's even more, if not comparable to COVID. And so on and down the line. So you can kind of see the opportunities for healthcare here are enormous, I think, right? Something for you to consider. Well, but maybe the last big topic I wanna kind of share some thoughts on, and hopefully get your thoughts if you're listening to me today. What does it mean for the broader general public? Right now that vaccinations are going to be starting to get out there, does this mean we're going back to the way it was? Or are we now able to really think about imagining the new normal, right? I don't really like that term, but that's what everybody kind of calls it. Are we able to actually experiment a little bit, right? Realizing that these experimentations aren't just temporary solutions, but potentially the next solutions. I think that's going to be really interesting. Because right now, all the temporary stuff, all the kind of survival mode that all of us have been in, whether it's work from home or hybrid education or whatever, new ways you've had to, survive this year, I think most people viewed it as just temporary, right? All the way until things get back to normal. But now vaccines are there, right? Now normal's coming back, or at least the normal environment, somewhat normal environment's coming back. So what does that mean? Does it mean that everybody gets vaccinations and then we're all forced back in the office? Right. Now, you've probably seen headlines already of companies already announced way before vaccinations that they're open to continuing these temporary measures for some time, right? Some of the big tech firms have said nobody needs to come back to the office until like mid 2021. So they said that, months ago, given a full year. But what happens post 2021? Now, some, employers have said we're probably never going back to the new way. But does that mean virtual all? Does that mean, just less real estate? Does it mean potentially open up a lot of satellite offices? I mean, there have been thoughts that, since we don't need to all meet in person, there'll never be really a time where we're all in the offices. Why do we need lots of expensive real estate in the center of town? Since our workers are probably spread around a city, why don't we set up all these kind of satellite offices, one in the north, one in the east, one in the west, one in the south, so that people can kind of come in whenever they choose. Again, maybe with some coordination, so their teams, you can meet with your teams. But the need for a flagship HQ in the center of the business district, grade A real estate, which is the highest and usually the most expensive, at some fancy, skyscraper that's iconic to, the country, to the region, to the world. Maybe those days are gone. Don't know. But I think this is where it's going to get a little interesting. It's going to get interesting. And I think, the starting point, right? Let's just start with the dollars and cents. I appreciate there's lots of other things like mental health and the wellness of folks. But since most companies are capitalist, for profit, some publicly listed, others privately held, right? I think once we follow the money, you're going to start to see changes happening. Because I just can't imagine you sustaining the same expensive cost base, especially for real estate, right? The basic infrastructure to operate your businesses. Now that you've shown that in the last year, the roof didn't fall down, right? You didn't collapse. Your business didn't die. Yeah, maybe not optimal, and maybe things slowed a little bit, right? But many businesses were able to continue fairly okay. And I think that's going to spark a whole bunch of new things, right? Like, what does it mean to work as a team? The concept of teamwork, I think, is going to change quite a bit. The concept of networks are going to change a lot of it too, right? And I think the way we interact with each other in the longer term, I think, has a chance of really fundamentally shifting into new paradigms. I don't know what those are yet. I haven't had a chance to really think about it. I think, over the holidays, I'm going to give it some thoughts. But I think today, leaders have to really start to dig in a little bit, or at least try to build some more purposeful experiments to try it out, right? I mean, all the experiments we've been doing in the last 6 to 8 months, I would generally suggest they're probably more survival mode experiments, right? Not necessarily strategic, trying to do some things, hoping that, you might be able to continue to do this down the road. I mean, some really smart ones have probably done that, but most are just trying to do changes, the least amount to keep the lights on, to keep it afloat. But now the vaccine's around the corner, we don't necessarily have the same concerns and risks. What do we do? I think here's a great chance for up and coming companies to quickly leapfrog their old traditional, maybe bigger competition. And to me, that's pretty exciting, right? Disruption means good things for everybody, good things for customers, good things for employers, good things potentially for countries, the environment, the world, as we look at how we factor in things like sustainability and obviously climate change and all that kind of good stuff. This vaccination, I think, is getting to be the tipping point. But having said that, I mean, we're just at the beginning here, and the whole vaccination process is going to take like years, right? Even though the UK might be starting this week, I think they're starting with obviously frontline healthcare workers first, and then slowly into the population. But I'm guessing they're going to be start and stops as well, right? What I'm most nervous about, though, is people just think that this is time to go back to the usual way, not to be having their guard up anymore, not to think more broadly, more smarter, just to go back to what they're used to. And I think that could be pretty bad. Okay, so hey, if you're joining me, I see a few more of you have popped up on the live stream. Hit me up on the chat, say hello, or if you want to chat, if you have any questions, or you want to, comment or share your views on what you think the future workplace might look like, come join me here on Zoom. You can find the meeting details in the description below, and meeting IDs there, the passwords there, and I'd love to chat. Or if you have any questions about anything career related, right? Come join me. Okay. Right. I think that's really it, right? I'll wait a little bit longer to see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'm gonna probably cut a little bit early today. But I want to just maybe end with a couple things I'm thinking about for the last few weeks, since we only have a few more, 3 more sessions before the end of the year. And my commitment was to keep this going right up to the end of the year. And I'm starting to think about what maybe the new year might look like and how to evolve what we're doing here. So again, if you have any thoughts, if you're, listening to this for the first time today, let me know. Or if you've joined me a few times over the last, I think we've done it for the last 2+ months. Give me your thoughts, comments, suggestions on what you like about what we do here every Sunday, or what kind of things we could do better or different going forward. I'd love your input. This whole thing's really new to me, right? If there's anything I've been a little bit better with over the last, I guess, 2 months, is that I'm more comfortable just talking to myself, talking to the camera, knowing that you're out there listening, but not necessarily interacting with me, which to me is always the most awkward part. So I'm getting a bit better with that, right? And I've got a bit of a flow, the structure of what we want to talk about every week, some headlines, some issues, and, let's see, wild cards with questions, right? But if you think there's even a better way, or if we need a little more variety, right? Or if I should schedule guests to come and perhaps have a guest come join me each week, a headliner, let me know, right? I mean, the radio show models, how I've always thought about this, right? Right from the graphic you see, if you've seen me publicize about this. But even the whole style, right? I was hoping that eventually we get to a place where, like radio talk shows where you just call in, chat, have a 5-10 minute chit chat, and then another person, and so on and so on. They keep it lively as well, right? But again, things are totally new these days online. I'm only dipping my toe, right? I mean, don't ask me about TikTok and all these other types of things. I'll just start with this as a starting point. But if you're all over that, let me know. I could use some guidance. I could definitely use some help on that. So I think with the last few weeks, one thing I think I'm going to do is maybe next week or the week after, I'm just going to have a week where I'm just going to ask people to come in and just, if you've been job hunting this year at any point in time, I'd invite you to come on and tell me your stories. What's been going on? How's it going? Rant to me, complain to me. If the recruiters are treating you like crap, I just want to sit there and just have a chance for job seekers, because it's obviously been a very tough year if you're one of those right now, to really just come at me with everything, right? Because you need an outlet for this. I can appreciate how frustrating it can be when you're out there and things are the way it is. Again, I mentioned this in the past. I know a little bit of what it means to be out there in tricky times like this. Because when I came out of undergraduate, I graduated in 2001 with a degree in computer science, tech. If you remember your recent history, that was right after the dot-com bust. So it was not exactly a good time to be coming out for your very first job, where offers were being rescinded. People were having their start dates pushed back 6 months, some a year, even beyond. It was a tricky time. And I remember some of those times. I was pretty lucky back then because I had an internship before and got converted, and my employer decided to honor their offers, but many others that I know did not. And although that might have seemed a long time ago, oh man, 2001, it's like 20 years ago. I have a more recent memory, because when I came to do my master's, actually out here in Singapore in 2008, when I started, right at the end of 2008, I'm sure you remember that history. In the middle of that was the financial crisis, the big one. And that was obviously another tough time. And I remember end of 2008 and like half of 2009, what that was like: frustration, hope, despair, right? The whole thing. So if you have been on that end, love for you to come. Yeah, I want to hear your stories. Let it all out, right? And if there's something you think I can even help you with, don't hesitate. But if anything, I'm gonna have a session just to let people rant. So hopefully you'll tune in for that. Spread the word, right? And I'm thinking how we're gonna wrap up the end of the year. What kind of a thing we're gonna do? Not really sure. Not really sure. We'll see what the news brings in the last few weeks. I always try to keep it current and relevant. But again, if you've got some thoughts, let me know. Okay. So with that, I don't know if anybody has any questions that are out there watching me today. If you do, again on the chat, or come join me on the Zoom, right? Otherwise, we'll be here. Yeah, every Sunday, 9 p.m. Singapore time. That's GMT +8, right? Where we'll talk about all things careers and answer your questions and yeah, hopefully entertain you at least for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it may be. Okay. So until then, continue to stay safe despite the fact that vaccines potentially could be around the corner, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.